last week. But we can go ahead and maybe finish up this particular lesson so we can actually start the fruits of the Spirit, because the first two lessons are about the works of the flesh and how to discern the difference between the good and the bad, which is basically what we talked about last week, how to discern the difference between good and evil. So let's begin with a prayer. Holy Father, thank you so much for bringing us together today. We thank you, Lord, for your love and your goodness toward us. We thank you for the many blessings that you give to us. Bless us today as we study from your word, that we may gain the things that will help us live closer to you and be better Christians in your sight. Please forgive us of our sins and help us to always live close to you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. We had gotten down to number 9 under the section, the deadness of these works, in lesson 2. So, and what the author is trying to get us to understand is the danger that comes from sin. You know, we very rarely see danger in things, don't we? It's like, you know, and I'll use this as an example tonight. We're probably dealing with 300-400 pounds of firework or black powder. Now, what would 500 pounds of black powder do to a building? It would pretty much destroy it. Yeah. Thankfully, these are all broken down into small little boxes, and they are designed to do one thing, and the people who do this know how to handle it, or it will do what it's supposed to do instead of what it wants to do. But there's danger involved in every box that I have out there, and I've got 40-something boxes of fireworks for us to shoot. They all say the same thing: warning, danger, shoots fire. You know, be careful. This could hurt you. You know, I have a preacher friend of mine. In fact, he baptized me and married Pat and I. He lost an eye to fireworks when he was a teenager. And you can't tell him by looking at him, but he can only see out of one eye. It's been that way for most of his life. So, you know, they're dangerous. There are things we have to take precautions in doing anything. A lot of people don't see danger in COVID-19. A lot of people refuse to take the shots. A lot of people refuse to wear the mask. A lot of people refuse to do anything to protect themselves. And a lot of people die as a result of that because they did not take the precautions. Most of the people, I am told, even with this last round, who were getting this, not this is exclusive, but the majority of the people who were getting this never took a shot. The shots were effective and they didn't take it. So, you know, there's danger, and we have to do things to protect ourselves from danger. If a car pulls out in front of you, what's the most protective thing you can do? Put on your brakes. Yeah, get your brakes. It's there for the purpose of protecting you. It's how you protect yourself from danger, because automobiles are dangerous. They're wonderful. They get you from A to B easily, you know, and they're much better today than they used to be. But there's a lot of things about it that's dangerous, and we have to take care of all that. So, you know, and what the author's trying to tell us here, sin is dangerous. And when we involve ourselves with it, most of the time we don't see that. Now, do we know it's there in the back of our mind? Probably so. I mean, and I use King David as an example. King David was so close to his God. He loved the Lord. I mean, you can read the first of his writings in the Psalms before the event of Bathsheba took place. And throughout the younger years of his life, and even when he became king, his love for God was immense. And probably when he stepped out of his window and saw Bathsheba bathing, he knew what was going on. When he called for her to come to him, he knew what was going on. When he committed the sin with her, he knew what was going on. But something blinded him of the danger. Sin has a way of doing that. It can blind you. It can make you not see the danger that's involved with it. until it's gotten a hold of you. You know, I went to Florida back in the 90s. Motorola sent us to South Florida, and we spent some time, of course, with the seminar we had down there. And then they gave us a couple of days just to do whatever we wanted to do. So I took an airboat ride and went to an alligator farm. And there was, and I called him an idiot because to me he was an idiot. He got out there in the middle of all those alligators with fish in his hand, feeding the alligators. And they would come up this close to his hand and he just handed to them, you know. And an alligator, and I learned this, are not as aggressive as you think they are. But a crocodile is. Now, they had all alligators out there, but they had one crocodile. And the one crocodile, the 100 alligators that were out there were scared to death of that one crocodile because he was a lot more dangerous than the alligators were. Well, this man hopped in the cage with all the alligators, and he'd feed them, and when they'd take the food, he'd pat them on the head and just go about his business. When he got to the crocodile cage, they had a pulley system with that used a cable. He hooked a fish to a hook on that cable and rolled that fish out to that crocodile 30, 40 feet away. He did not get anywhere near that crocodile because he understood the danger of it. We found out later on the man was bitten by one of those alligators that he wasn't afraid of. Even though they were docile toward him, it got him. It happens. He didn't see, he knew it was there. He knew the danger was there, but he continued doing what he was doing, and one of them finally got him. You see, sometimes sin, it'll be something that we just want to do so bad, and we blind ourselves to what is really out there. Yeah, sins are pretty. They're flashy. They're fun. But the results, as this phrase is death. Number 9. Let's go to number 9 and answer this question. Describe the Gentiles' condition when they were involved in the works of the flesh before the Christian age. Okay. Now, first of all, let's define Gentile. Gentiles in the days of the Bible, a little different than what we would call a Gentile today. In the days of the Bible, who really were the Gentiles?
Anybody but the Jews.
Anybody but the Jews is what it comes down to. Now, they followed, those who were religious followed pagan gods, and there were Gentiles who were religious. Those who were not religious was just simply carnal. They lived to please themselves. Okay? Now, Gentiles of today, who would be classified as a Gentile of today? Anybody that's not the original Jew. Now here's something, and I said this in a class one time, really made a fellow mad at me. Those of us in this room are Gentiles. Everybody is Gentile. Because we don't have any original Jews anymore, do we? There's no such thing. That group is now dead and gone. Now, we have people who claim to be Jews, those who follow the Jewish religion, the Old Testament canon, the book of Leviticus and all of that, which they really don't, because they couldn't in America, because it would be illegal, because it's all the sacrifices that would be involved.
Well, the Jews of the Bible, they were a race. They were
Yes.
a nation.
Yes.
They were it wasn't the religion so much as...
And now it is a religion.
Now it is,
Yeah.
yes.
The race that comes in the old Bible Jews come from Abraham. He was just like, Adam was the beginning of all people. After the flood, Noah was the beginning of all people. Well, Abraham was the beginning of all Jews. And when that race ended, so did all of the original Jews. The race of Jews was only a remnant when Christ came. And there wasn't even the tribes any longer. Although they did keep up with themselves as being in a part of a tribe. Jesus was of the part of what tribe? Anybody know?
Judah.
Judah. He was the tribe of Judah. But the tribe of Judah no longer existed. They were a remnant of the tribe of Judah. They were a remnant of the Jewish race. There are no Jews anymore on earth. We're all Gentiles, because a Gentile is anyone who is not I hate to say it this way, an Abrahamic Jew is what it comes down to. So we are Gentiles. And boy, like I said, I made a fellow mad at me when I said that, because he thought that Gentile meant that you're just a bad person. Well, yeah, the Bible speaks of the Gentiles in a very negative way. And especially, when Paul talks about that God gave them up to all their vileness and all their sins and all their corruption, he'd say, okay, if you want to do it, do it. And he did. But he was talking to people who were not Jews, and we are people who are not Jews. And so before Christianity, Romans 1, you can read verse 24 through 32, gives some pretty good detail of how these people actually were. They didn't care about much. They were carnal. They lived to please themselves. And it says God gave them up to all the vileness of sin that they had consumed. And that's what happened. Will he do that today? Will he give us up to our vileness and our sin? Yes, he will. He's not going to force anyone to obey. Now, a lot of these Gentiles, and that's what Paul did, he focused on the Gentiles because the Jews rejected him, just as they rejected Christ. So Paul said, hey, I'm going to the Gentiles, and he did. The churches at Corinth, Ephesus, Galatia, all of those were Gentile churches. The only church that Paul went to that wasn't Gentile was Rome. And which were, for the most part, Gentile, but they were Jews in the Roman church. We just need to understand the difference in those two and how the Gentiles were thought of in the days of the Bible. They were just basically corrupt people. And God gave them up to be that way. They were typical examples of those who live for the works of the flesh, which we've been talking about and what they are. Now, the next section on our lesson is, how do you defend yourself against the works of the flesh? Number one, we all give in to them. It doesn't matter who we are, where we come from, who our mom and daddy is, our creed, our race, our culture, whatever. We're going to give in to it. That's just a fact of life. But how can we help to ward ourselves against it? Study has well, it's the greatest part of it. We have a better understanding of what God asks of us. We also need to have this understanding. We can't do it alone. We've got to have help from God. Now, turn in your Bibles to 1 Corinthians 10 and verse 13. And here is the help that comes from God. It is a promise that is given to us as we face sin in our lives, and every one of us have to. No temptation has overtaken you except such as is common to man. In other words, nothing is going to be presented to us that wasn't presented to Adam and Eve. Is that true or false?
True.
Okay. James, he breaks sin down into three things: lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and pride of life. Three categories of sin. There are not four. There are only three. Because these three, one of these three will get you. Which one did he use on Eve?
To me, he used all three.
He used all of them. He absolutely used all of them. He appealed to her sense of wantingness, lust of the flesh. The tree was it looked like a beautiful thing, lust of the eyes. It looked like it was something to make you wise, pride of life. You can be like God, you can know right and wrong, pride of life. So He used all three of those things on her. Now, he may not have to use all three of those things on us. He may just use one thing that he knows that we're going to fall for. And that's what he does. But here it is. Here's God's help. No temptation has overtaken you except such as common man. We already know what he's going to throw at us. Okay? That's what this is saying. Satan is not going to throw anything at us that he hadn't thrown at your mom and daddy, that he hadn't thrown at your grandparents, that he hadn't thrown at your neighbors, that he hadn't thrown at people across the street. It's going to be the same thing over and over and over again. And we can think back to some of the traps that we fell into. We wasn't the first one to fall into them. Other people have already fallen into them. We just follow in suit. Nobody today does anything that generations before people haven't already done it. Nothing is new under the sun. Solomon said that nothing is new under the sun. It's all the same thing. It never changes. And the same is true for sin. Now, let's finish this verse. But God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able. Now, let's stop there. What does that mean? God will not allow you to be tempted above what you are able. What does that mean?
Well, to me, it means whatever I'm going through, apparently God thinks I'm able to handle it.
Okay.
Because I'm going through it, so.
It tells me one of two
Yeah,
things.
Yeah.
It tells me you can do this, you can handle this. It also tells me that he's going to help you handle it. That it's not going to get so bad that you can't handle it. And if you fail, you're going to be at fault because God didn't give you something you couldn't handle. All right? Now, the third part of this verse. But with the temptation also make a way of escape that you may be able to bear it. In other words, he's not going to give you anything you can't take care of, you can handle. And he's always going to give you a way out. Now, the problem is, it's not that we can't see a way out. The problem is sometimes we don't want a way out. When we get wrapped up in something and we think, oh, I've just got to have this, I've just got to do this, I've just got to be a part of this. I don't want out. But God has given you a way out. There is never anything that you have to deal with sin that you cannot overcome. You may choose not to overcome it, but there's never anything that you can't. All right. Another thing that we can do, this is the second part of answer number 10, is that we can look to Jesus for our example in resisting temptation. Now, what all did Jesus have to encounter?
What do you have to encounter?
What all did he have to encounter when it comes to looking at sin, being attacked by sin?
All of it?
Okay. Hebrew writer tells us that he was tempted in all points as we are, yet without sin. Okay. The Bible doesn't tell us very much about what he encountered. He encountered being hungry and challenged to make bread out of rocks. He encountered being carried up on the pinnacle of a temple and proving himself to be the Son of God by jumping off. And he was tempted by being shown all of the kingdoms of the world and the glory of it, and Satan would see to it that he had it at his fingertips if he would follow him instead of God. Is that the only three things that he was ever tempted with?
Well, it would have fallen in those three categories.
Okay. But now, I wonder.
But he was human.
He was human.
Mm-hmm.
You can't help but wonder. Was he ever tempted to take a drink?
So,
Was he ever tempted to smoke? Was he ever tempted to have sex?
sex, not smoke.
You don't think he was ever tempted? Well, it says he was tempted in all points as we are.
Yeah,
There was nothing that we're tempted with that he wasn't tempted with.
But in smoking, very seldom hear anything about smoking in the Bible.
Well, it was done, especially with the illicit drugs, because the Egyptians had it flowing through
Yeah.
Egypt.
The Egyptians
Yeah.
mainly,
I'm talking about the Bible, ladies and
yeah,
gentlemen. It was there.
yeah.
It was there. Did he face things like we face today? I guess that's my question. Because, I mean, some of the things that our teenagers have to face, he was tempted in all points as we are, so we must have to face it.
Yeah, he did, because,
Yeah.
it's not that much has changed in the sex, the drugs,
Absolutely.
it's all
Yeah.
it's just a modern day time from where he was.
Right. And that statement tells me that in facing these things, he knew how to get away from it. But I've often wondered that myself, just sitting, just thinking, I mean, what did he do in the back row of the locker room at school? Was he ever tempted to do what some of the people do there? How did he handle the parties on the beach with the clam bakes and the beer running, flowing like everything?
Well,
We know he ate on the beach because he cooked fish on the beach.
Right.
Hey, it was there. So all I'm saying is, he had to handle these things. We don't have a record of it,
well, we know
but
he
he
got
had to handle
angry.
these things. Pardon?
We know he got angry and he experienced those emotions and things, but he didn't sin.
Right?
He,
Yeah, and that's another thing.
he,
When I get angry, sometimes I don't keep it nice and clean and sweet.
Yeah.
I've often wondered, I'd like to have seen him in the temple when he drove the money changers out. I mean, when you see pictures of it and you see the movie, you see with a bullwhip in his hand and he's doing this while people's running away from it. I don't know that happened. But he could have been smiling and being joyful while he was doing it. He just knew how to handle those situations. I've often wondered that. How did he actually handle some of these things?
We know how to handle a lot of things, but we don't do it the right way, though.
True enough. That's it. We don't do it the right way. I've even often wondered, when he reached up for a cookie, did he get his hand slapped like we slap our kids? Did he get spankings, and was he corrected? Was he challenged as a teenager to do better, or was he one of those perfect kids that never did anything wrong?
well, when they lost him and they went back,
Right,
and
yeah.
he said, "I'm about my Father's business," the next verse or two said he was subjective to his parents
Yeah.
in all things.
In all things, right?
And he said he grew
Yeah.
in wisdom.
Yeah.
So it was a learning process. A 6-year-old doesn't know what an 8-year-old knows.
Right. Now, I have to tell you this, and this is just fair and handler. If my 12-year-old son had left people that he was with and went back and run away, because that's running away,
Mhm.
first thing I'd have done is hug him, the second thing I'd have done is rip out my belt.
Yeah.
Because, he'd have got it from me. But, that's how I would have handled 12-year-old staying in Jerusalem for 3 days, when he didn't have any business being there, in my mind.
You'd be so proud that he's all
Yeah.
right, but then that
Yeah.
anger would
He
come
wouldn't have
back
rode the
in.
camel back home.
Well, we had one that happened at Disney World, but before that, it's like the before and the after. He
Well,
didn't
did
wanna
they,
hold my hand,
did they
he didn't wanna stay
deliberately,
with
or
us.
did it just get lost?
He didn't want to do anything.
Oh,
But
okay.
after we found him, he stuck to me like glue. After that,
Oh, we had Philip get lost in Walmart. I think it was Walmart. He
was
got off on
Mandy.
another road.
It was Mandy.
Huh?
Mandy.
It was Mandy. And then all of a sudden, we heard, "Mom." We knew where she was in, but that wasn't deliberate, I don't think.
Gary lost Dalen at Water Adventures.
Do what?
Gary lost Dalen at Water Adventures.
Oh, wow.
He was like 3.
That would be so bad, in a place like that is so big and can get just swallowed. Swallow you up.
At Disney World, I was like,
Yeah.
And they do have ways to help you when that happens. They know exactly what to do to find your child.
Yeah.
Good thing they do. Yeah.
Well, I told Mandy if anybody ever tried to get her to holler, "This is not my mama. This is not my mama." And we were at Target in Nashville, Tennessee, and she got mad at me because I wouldn't let her out of the buggy. And she started hollering, "This isn't my mama. This isn't my mama." I said, "Just wait till I get you that car." You'll wish I wouldn't.
Now, that was deliberate.
Yeah, that was just.
Well, you know, one of the little
Bad
statements
job.
that Philip had in his little sermon, you know, he was telling a story about him and Mandy, and he said, you know, that y'all had have problems with him, mostly Mandy, but
He did say that.
He said mostly Mandy. Y'all, I got some video that will contradict that. Listen, he was, what's the word we like to use?
Busy. He was
Yeah.
very, very busy.
No, he wasn't the little ice cream and sugar child that you think he might have been. You know.
But I don't think they think that. I think it's he just says that.
yeah.
They know better.
Well, I just think he's a lot like his dad.
Yeah.
Well, listen, his daddy wouldn't know anything.
Oh, listen, but his
Now,
mama thought he
and my
was.
mama thought I did no wrong, but mama didn't know a lot.
I used to tell her, I'd say, "Erling, one of these days, I'm going to be telling my daughter-in-law the same thing about Philip, and we all weren't going to know that's not true." So, you know, because she thought he'd done nothing. Nothing.
As when I got an adult, and you know, I started telling some of these things I'd done as a kid. Oh, you didn't really do that, did you? Yeah, I really did. You know, there's a lot of things my mama never found out about. Like I said, if you're gonna do it, don't get caught. You know, it was that.
That too. My
I was
sister
the-
used to tell me I was the golden child.
Yeah.
I said, "Where's gold at?"
I was probably the opposite. I got to watch Lori and learn from her mistakes, which I didn't do too good of a job at some things. But I would just flat out tell Mama what I was doing. If I was going to a party and knew I shouldn't, I'd tell Mama I'm going to a party. And Mama wouldn't believe me. She would think I was joking, but I really was. So I wouldn't lie. I learned not to lie.
Okay. All righty. Number 11. It is not possible to test and see if one has overcome the works of the flesh. False. How do you know if you have overcome, if one has overcome the works of the flesh?
The way they act, the way they behave.
The way you act, the way you behave. The reference here is given in Matthew 7:17-20, which basically says, we will know by their fruits, by the way they live, their actions. The works of the flesh and the fruit of the Spirit are antagonistic. Okay, let's define that word first of all. What is antagonistic? When we've heard people call other people, they're antagonistic. What does that mean?
Confrontational?
Pardon?
Or confrontational?
Confrontational. They're against everything. It's like Democrats and Republicans. If one's for it, they've got to be against it. The other has to be against it. Even if it's good, that's how it works out. The actual definition is showing or feeling active opposition or hostility towards someone or something. That's the actual definition. Galatians 5:17 gives us basically this definition. For the flesh lusts against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary to one another, so that you do not know the things that you wish. In other words, it's sort of like, we've all seen the cartoon, and I've mentioned this in other examples, the little angel on one side of your ear, the little devil on the other side, and one of them saying, "Go ahead and do it," and I said, "No, be good." You know, you don't know what to do, because it's like a tug of war between good and bad. You know, and that's what Paul's saying. It's really that way. One is 100% one direction, the other's 100% the other direction. There is no middle ground, so you've got to choose one over the other. And you don't know what to do. That's true. Peter said, 1 Peter 2, verse 11, Beloved, I beg you, as sojourners and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lust which war against the soul. So he's talking about that battle that goes back and forth between what is right and what is wrong. Now, what usually happens when you battle between right and wrong?
The bad one's out.
Wrong wins out. And the
Yeah.
reason for that, sometimes you just get tired of fooling with it and you give in. Right? Sometimes you think this isn't worth the effort, and you let it go. That's generally what happens. Now, there are situations where people are just so headstrong in doing the wrong thing that it doesn't matter. I'm going to do this regardless, and we have people that way. But usually you're just beaten down. At least that's what I have found. Number 13. Why do humans have a tendency to repeat the same sins over and over?
Weak faith.
Okay? Like I said, sins can be enjoyable, can't they? They can be pleasurable, they can be pretty.
This time than they did last time.
Yeah. Be fun.
Well, nobody would do it if it wasn't enticing.
Oh, absolutely.
pleasurable, or
And
made
if
to
it
look
didn't
pretty.
give you pleasure,
Yeah.
people wouldn't do it. Right, right. And you can just see yourself being there again, you know, so you give into it again.
Or you think that can happen the first time.
Yeah, you got away with it, yeah. Yeah, good point.
Try it again.
Yeah, I got away with it, so hey, I'll get away with it again. Sooner or later, that one comes to an end, though.
And sometimes, there is an immediate, consequence or, you know, something resulting from the sin, but sometimes it's in the future.
Yeah,
And in the future is what we don't
yeah.
realize until it's too late.
If sin would show its true results immediately, there'd be a lot less sin. When you do something for the first time and it worked, you got away with it, it was pleasant, what's the first thing on your mind? Hey, I've got something here. I'm going to do this again.
But you also probably don't think it's a sin.
And that's true. A lot of, you know, and a lot of that is because of this ignorance. We don't understand what is classified sin and what sin is. You know, and I'll use this. Well, any of the social sins that we deal with in society today. It's just another way of life. Homosexuality. Now it's just another way of life. They have the media. They have turned it to where you're wrong for being against it. You're ignorant for not wanting it. And they've made it look like this is where you need to be and this is what you need to do. I heard something the other day, and I thought, how in the world can this be? The Supreme Court overruled Roe versus Wade, okay, which is over abortion, right? You can still get abortions in America, but now it's up to the states. The feds have nothing to do with it anymore. All right? Somebody who was over some council, some organization with the homosexual group, said this is going to be a terrible negative toward the LGBTQ group. How? How can it affect them? They don't have kids. How can it affect them? The only way they can get it if someone don't get an abortion and they adopt. That's the only way they can have kids. So how can it affect them? I don't understand that. But it's just one, I'll say pagan group siding with another. That's what it comes down to.
They browbeat the heck out of you.
Yeah, exactly. And they will combine in numbers, even though they may not follow the same sin, follow the same activity, but they will group together against those who are opposed to any type of sin or sinful activity, which is what has happened here. The Supreme Court overturned a terrible injustice. They did the right thing.
Yeah.
And now, the sinful groups are trying to take action to make them look bad for doing so.
Well, you take most of your politicians, they're Catholic or Protestant or things like that. And you know they're against abortions,
Right.
but up there, they wanna go with whoever's leading the group.
And that's one thing I can't understand about our president. He's supposed to be a practicing Catholic.
Right.
He's supposed to be as Catholic as anybody has ever been.
He
And the first
is,
thing he would do is sign up an abortion
he is
into
as,
law.
he is as led
Yeah.
as anybody ever was
You're
in
right,
the
you're right
world.
there, yeah.
He's led.
He's got that ring in his nose and they pull
Yeah,
him around.
yes, exactly.
Absolutely, yeah. And you know, he goes against the very religion that opposes this, and of course, most of these groups are after the Catholics because they have taken a stronger stance against abortion than any other religion. Okay, so they're really after the Catholics, you know, and him being supposedly a staunch Catholic. But he would vote that law back into law again in a heartbeat if he had an opportunity to. Was that the bill? Okay. All right, well, we will answer 14 and 15 next week and move on into, finally, we're gonna get into the fruits of the Spirit, which is what this is all about, so.